The late afternoon sun, a hazy orange orb sinking towards the horizon, cast long, melancholic shadows across the manicured lawn of their Pennsylvania home. Inside, 10-year-old Emily sat in her wheelchair by the window, her gaze fixed on the distant, swaying branches of an old maple tree. Her small fingers traced the worn fabric of her lap blanket, a silent, repetitive motion that had become a constant companion since the accident. The vibrant hues of the sunset seemed to mock the muted world she now inhabited. The laughter and running feet that once echoed through the house were replaced by a heavy, suffocating silence. Emily often felt like a ghost in her own life, watching the world move on while she remained tethered to her chair, her memories of running through sun-dappled fields a bittersweet ache in her chest. In the kitchen, the rhythmic clatter of dinner preparations was Susan's attempt to create a semblance of normalcy. Each carefully chopped vegetable, each precisely measured spice, was a small act of defiance against the grief that clung to their home like a persistent fog. Susan's heart ached with a dull, constant throb, a mirror of the physical pain she knew Emily endured. She would steal glances at Emily, her own reflection a mirror of worry etched onto her face. The doctors had used words like spinal cord injury and post-traumatic stress disorder, but Susan saw only her bright, vivacious daughter fading into a shadow of her former self. The vibrant artwork that once adorned the refrigerator now lay tucked away in drawers, just like Emily's infectious laughter. Susan often found herself staring at old photographs, her heart twisting with a longing for the carefree days before the accident, a time when Emily's smile could light up an entire room. One crisp autumn afternoon, while Susan was tending her small herb garden in the backyard, a faint, heart-wrenching whimper drifted from the edge of the woods bordering their property. It was a sound of pure distress, thin and reedy, like a child's stifled sob. Susan's gardening shears clattered to the ground as a wave of concern washed over her. Leaving her gloves behind, she hurried towards the treeline, her footsteps crunching on the fallen leaves. Deeper within the woods, amidst the rustling undergrowth and the scent of damp earth, she found him. A young German shepherd, his ribs showing beneath his matted, mud-caked fur, lay whimpering beneath a sprawling oak. His left hind leg was caught in a cruel, rusty metal trap, the teeth of the snare digging deep into his flesh. His eyes, wide and filled with a mixture of terror and pain, met Susan's, pleading for help. An immediate wave of empathy and anger surged through her. She noticed an old, faded scar above his eye, hinting at a past that was likely filled with hardship. "Oh, you poor thing," Susan whispered, her voice thick with emotion. She knelt beside him, her fingers hovering over the cold, unforgiving metal of the trap. She tried to pry it open, but it was stubbornly locked. Frustration gnawed at her. She raced back to the house, her breath catching in her throat, and rummaged through the toolshed until she found a pair of bolt cutters and some heavy gloves. Back in the woods, the puppy's whimpers had grown weaker, punctuated by ragged gasps. With trembling hands, Susan worked at the trap, the cold metal biting into her gloved fingers. Finally, with a sharp snap, the snare sprang open. The puppy yelped, then collapsed onto the leaf-strewn ground, his body shaking. Susan gently scooped him up, cradling his fragile form in her arms. He was light as a feather, a testament to his starvation. His head rested against her chest, and she could feel the frantic beat of his heart, a fragile rhythm that she desperately hoped wouldn't falter. Emily watched from the window as her mother approached the house, a limp, mud-covered creature cradled in her arms. Her expression remained unchanged, a mask of quiet resignation. She had grown accustomed to the world bringing more pain and suffering, and this injured animal seemed like just another addition to their quiet misery. Susan carried the puppy inside and gently placed him in a laundry basket lined with old towels near Emily's bed. The puppy lay there, panting shallowly, his eyes dull with pain. Susan cleaned his wound with antiseptic and wrapped it with a makeshift bandage. She offered him a bowl of water, which he lapped at weakly. Emily remained silent, her gaze drifting back to the window, the familiar ache of loneliness settling in her chest. Susan sat beside the basket, stroking the puppy's head, her heart heavy with a familiar ache, the inability to ease the suffering of someone she loved. She wondered if bringing the injured dog home was the right decision, worried it might be too much for Emily to handle. Days turned into a week. The puppy, whom Emily had surprisingly named Lucky, a small spark of hope in the quiet room, remained mostly still, his injured leg preventing much movement. Susan was a constant presence, offering small sips of milk and broth, her gentle voice a soothing balm. She noticed Lucky would often flinch at sudden movements, a sign of his past trauma. Emily, though physically present, remained emotionally distant. She would occasionally glance at Lucky, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes, but she never spoke to him, never touched him. Susan tried not to be discouraged. She remembered the doctors saying healing took time, and perhaps Lucky's quiet presence was a form of therapy in itself, a silent witness to their shared pain. One evening, as Susan was reading aloud from Emily's favorite storybook, The Adventures of Peter Rabbit, Lucky let out a soft, almost questioning whine, his gaze fixed on Emily. Emily's head, which had been resting against the back of her wheelchair, turned slowly towards the basket. Her brow furrowed slightly, a hint of curiosity breaking through her usual apathy. Susan's heart skipped a beat. It was the first sign of genuine interest Emily had shown in anything since the accident. She continued reading, her voice a little steadier now, and Lucky remained focused on Emily, his tail giving a tiny, almost imperceptible thump against the towel. Over the next few weeks, Emily's interest in Lucky grew steadily. She would ask Susan about his progress, her voice barely a whisper at first, then gradually gaining strength. She started requesting that Lucky's basket be moved closer to her wheelchair. When Lucky was finally able to hobble around on 3 legs, Emily would watch him intently, a small smile occasionally gracing her lips as he clumsily navigated the room, bumping into furniture with a soft thud. One afternoon, as Lucky nudged his head against her hand, Emily tentatively reached out and stroked his soft, slightly matted fur. Lucky responded with a gentle lick, his tail thumping softly against the floor. It was a small gesture, but for Susan, it felt like a monumental breakthrough, a crack appearing in the wall of silence that had surrounded Emily for so long. Their bond deepened with each passing day. Lucky became Emily's shadow, following her wheelchair around the house, resting his head on her lap while she read, and nudging her hand with his wet nose whenever she seemed lost in her thoughts. The quiet house began to fill with the soft murmur of Emily's voice as she talked to Lucky, sharing stories about her school, her friends, and the things she missed, the feel of grass beneath her feet, the wind in her hair as she rode her bike. Lucky would listen intently, his head cocked to one side, his tail wagging gently, as if understanding every word. Susan often watched them, a warmth spreading through her chest that she hadn't felt in months. One day, Emily confided in Lucky about her fears of never walking again, her voice breaking with unshed tears. Lucky simply licked her hand, his warm, comforting presence a silent reassurance. One night, a loud crash from downstairs jolted Susan awake. She rushed down to find Emily struggling to reach a book that had fallen off a high shelf in the living room. Frustration was etched on Emily's face, and tears welled in her eyes. The noise had startled Lucky, who came bounding into the room on his 3 good legs, his ears perked up with concern. Seeing Emily's distress, he nudged the fallen book with his nose, pushing it closer to her reach. Emily looked at Lucky, her eyes wide with surprise and gratitude. "Thank you, Lucky," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. It was a small act of assistance, but it sparked a newfound sense of independence in Emily, a realization that she wasn't entirely reliant on others for every little task. From that night on, Lucky seemed to understand Emily's needs intuitively. He learned to retrieve dropped items, bring her slippers, and even nudge doors open with his nose. He became her constant companion, offering not just physical assistance but also unwavering emotional support. He would lie beside her wheelchair during her physical therapy sessions, his calm presence a source of encouragement. The animal rescue organization, hearing about the extraordinary bond between Emily and Lucky, paid them a visit. They were amazed by Lucky's gentle nature and his intuitive understanding of Emily's limitations. They proposed training him as a certified service dog, highlighting his exceptional temperament and intelligence, noting his remarkable ability to sense Emily's moods. Emily and Susan readily agreed, excited about the possibilities this could open up for Emily. The training was intensive but rewarding. Lucky excelled in every task, his loyalty and eagerness to please shining through. He learned specific commands to assist Emily with her daily routines, becoming an invaluable partner. He could retrieve her medication, open and close drawers, and even alert Susan if Emily needed help. With Lucky by her side, Emily's confidence blossomed. She started venturing outside more often, taking Lucky for slow walks around the neighborhood. The soft click of Lucky's paws on the pavement and the gentle jingle of the bell attached to Emily's wheelchair became a familiar and comforting sound in their quiet street. Emily even started attending online art classes, Lucky patiently sitting by her side, his presence a constant source of comfort and inspiration. Their story of resilience and companionship touched the hearts of many in their community. One day, a local newspaper featured an article about Emily and Lucky, their picture adorning the front page. The response was overwhelming. People sent letters of encouragement, and donations poured in for the animal rescue organization. Emily, once withdrawn and silent, found herself becoming an inspiration to others, a symbol of hope and perseverance. She even started a small blog, sharing her experiences with Lucky and connecting with other children with disabilities. One afternoon, while they were enjoying a picnic in their backyard, a sudden thunderstorm rolled in. Emily, who had always been afraid of storms, started to panic. Lucky, sensing her distress, immediately nudged his head against her hand and let out a soft, reassuring whine. His calm presence helped Emily to breathe through her fear, reminding her that she wasn't alone. The bond between Emily and Lucky continued to deepen, a testament to the healing power of unconditional love. They had both found solace and purpose in their unlikely friendship, proving that even in the face of adversity, hope and connection can blossom in the most unexpected ways. Lucky, the abandoned and injured puppy, had not only found a loving home but had also given Emily back her smile and a renewed zest for life. And Emily, in turn, had shown Lucky what it meant to be loved and cherished, healing the invisible scars of his past. They were a testament to the profound connection that can exist between humans and animals, a story of mutual rescue and unwavering loyalty.